Lake County is home to many pollinator species. A pollinator is any animal that transports pollen from the male anther of a flower to the female stigma, allowing fertilization to take place and seeds and fruit to develop. A large portion of the food crops that we eat rely on pollinators to reproduce, including fruits, nuts, and vegetables. In addition to supporting the agricultural crops that we rely on for food and other commodities, pollinators also pollinate native plants, providing food and habitat for wildlife. In exchange for their services, pollinators receive pollen and nectar to feed on from the plants. Many kinds of animals can act as pollinators, including bees, wasps, butterflies, moths, beetles, flies, and birds. Pollinators face a host of challenges, and habitat loss is the biggest among them. In Minnesota, less than 2% of our native prairies remain, and even along the North Shore, pollinators experience habitat loss. Improper pesticide use, diseases, pollution, and invasive species also threaten pollinators. Climate change poses a looming threat of which we have yet to feel the full effects. Pollinators may be decoupled from their host plants. Landscapes may shift, and storms may become more frequent and more severe, all of which could have a devastating impact on pollinator populations. There are many steps that you can take to help pollinators thrive. Planting native plants is one of the best ways to start. Even if you only have a small space available, a few potted plants can help support pollinators. Choosing native plants is beneficial because they are well adapted to your local soil and climate conditions, so will require fewer inputs. Native plants will support native pollinators as they have co-evolved. Choose a variety of plant species for your garden and make sure that there will be flowers in bloom from spring through autumn to provide a food source for pollinators throughout the growing season. Choosing a variety of flower shapes and colors will attract a variety of different pollinators. Bees tend to prefer visiting many flowers of the same species at a time, in a phenomenon called flower constancy. So plant clumps of a single species together to reduce the distance that bees need to travel from one flower to the next. When you're purchasing plants from a nursery, ask to make sure that the plants haven't been treated with neonicotinoids, which may harm pollinators. In addition to the beautiful native flowers, include larval host plants in your garden. Plant them in less conspicuous areas since they'll be eaten and show damage. Removing invasive species from your landscape can also benefit pollinators. Although at first glance it may appear that invasive flowers benefit pollinators by providing a source of pollen and nectar, the problem with invasive species is that they tend to form dense monocultures that crowd out native species. They all bloom at once, leaving pollinators without a food source for the rest of the season. You can provide a water source for pollinators by setting out a shallow dish of water or a bird bath. If you can safely do so, leave dead trees or limbs on your landscape as they provide nesting habitat for native bees. If you'd like to do more, you can get involved in a citizen science project. There are several projects organized by the University of Minnesota. If you're interested in bees, the Minnesota Bee Atlas has several programs you can participate in. If butterflies are more your speed, you may be interested in the monarch larva monitoring program. If you'd like to plant a native garden for pollinators, but need help selecting plant species, the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources website has a wealth of information, with a list of links to guides on planting for pollinators. And as always, you're welcome to contact our office if you'd like more guidance.